yeah, I don't want to put words in your mouth. That might not be the case for L&D, but is that something you have? Do you ever feel like you are having to kind of sell it in internally?
Always. Al always. Yeah, like, I just feel like we're always fighting for a seat at the table, and, like, since the start, that's been the case.
In terms of where you are now, which is Marks and Spencers, would you say the two felt very different in terms of, I guess, the approach to learning?
In my world, I try and find someone in the leadership team, one person that really gets that and that's, like, really willing to listen and is excited about L&D, and they can kind of become your best friend and you sort of like your first follower.
I thought you said warrior to warrior. I was like,
Yeah,
ooh.
no, it's a tough one to hear.
Okay, Alice, you have been on my wish list for the podcast for quite some time. In fact, I've said this to you before, but you were actually the first person that I invited to the
Oh,
podcast. So welcome and thank you
yeah.
so much for agreeing to be on.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind. I'm really happy to be a part of it, and yeah, I hope I don't let you down. That's like a big intro. So yeah,
I know.
yeah.
I've raised the stake. In fact, just to like raise the stakes even more, it's the first time that I'm presenting. I'm usually very much behind the camera in my happy space. So this is out of my comfort zone, but I really wanted to do this with you. I think I first became aware of you, I reckon, about 2 years ago when you were on the conference panel at Learning Tech,
Hmm.
as a speaker. What was the panel that you were doing there?
It was kind of a bit of a women in learning
Yeah, that's
panel that I did, and we just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the experiences of being a woman in learning. So we all picked like a different subject on it, and I think was it mine was being a warrior to a warrior, and yeah, because I'm a natural worrier. It's like I worry about everything, and so I
oh,
wanted to talk about how do you
worry.
turn that, yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
you said I thought you said warrior to warrior. I was like, "Ooh, what's that?"
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a
Warrior.
tough one to hear, but yeah, so, but yeah, I wanted to turn it into a superpower, and there's some other, like, incredible people, like, talking on that day as well, so yeah, I loved that.
Yeah, yeah, and then from there, I followed you on LinkedIn. I think I messaged you a few times, invited you on the
Mhm.
podcast,
Yeah.
and genuinely, I say quite a lot of your posts to kind of refer
Oh, well,
back to. So yeah, you're definitely
that's awesome.
someone in the industry that resonated with me. And then we got to meet in person a couple of weeks ago at the British Training Awards. So yeah, that's why I thought we got on really well. The conversation was great. So I thought I would put myself forward and continue the conversation today.
Yeah, oh, I'm really pleased. I'm pleased that it's me and you, we can support
Yeah,
each other through
yeah,
it.
for sure. So we got chatting and talking around how you've navigated your career so far. Lots of different organizations and the different things that that's brought, which we're absolutely going to get into. What I don't have any clue around is how you found yourself in L&D in the first place. Um,
Mm.
and I'm just really curious because I would I would assume maybe a bit like myself, no one really grows up thinking I'm going to be a strategic L&D manager or marketing manager. Um yeah, so what did that look like for you? How did you find your way into the sector?
Yeah, I definitely didn't grow up thinking I wanted to work in L&D. I think it's quite an interesting story because wanted to be a criminal psychologist before. And so yeah, I went to university and did all the stuff to get myself there, and then landed in my local police force.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and I was quite lucky, really, just sort of that all happened, and I really loved it. I found it so interesting, to really get under the skin of why people might do something, and just the psychology behind it, and just learning to kind of understand people in that way. And so yeah, I went over to the police, and when I sort of made it, I did a stint in the kind of forensic side, and I just found it really tough. I think you have to be made of certain stuff to like see that, those behaviors every day and see people suffering in that way. So I didn't I found that I just wasn't enjoying it, so I just thought, "How can I just maybe look for something a little bit different?" And then, a job came up in learning and development in the police force, so I thought I'll give that a go, and moved over there, and spent a bit of time and just sort of like, I think I fell in love with it a bit there because it was just sort of I'd never really heard of learning development before. We were quite new to the workforce as well, and what was great about being part of the police force is you could create like really practical like activities, because obviously you're trying to make it as real as possible for the officers to like, to build those muscles. So I found it fascinating, and then I just was looking for a way, because the sort of experience I had in the forensic side really sort of touched me in a way, and I wanted to find something that really sort of was part of that passion. And then their job came up in learning development for the Prince's Trust, which is now the King's Trust. So I thought that's cool because it's a company that, stops people from getting into the system in the first place. So yeah, that's how I ended up in it. Because I
Wow.
moved over to the Prince's Trust, and then the journey continued from there. So
Yeah. Yeah, so
yeah.
not a kind of a linear intentional path by any means, but
No, no, definitely not. Yeah, and I think like I don't know if your experience, but I do sort of find you land in a role and it's sort of like, I think it ignites something in you and you just think there's something here, and then you just end up staying in it forever.
yeah. What's interesting with that is it's like psychology, and I think both marketing and learning and development at the core of it is human psychology. And obviously how you apply it in different ways. But I was going to do a master's in psychology. I was a bit more on that path. So my degree was in marketing, and that was my intention. But I took a psychology and consumer behavior module and then went on to, I never did it. I did my master's and then I deferred it. And then I kind of got into the industry, and that was that. But yeah, I can see how that would definitely be like a cool segue in. How has it been at the police force?
I mean, I loved it. Like, yeah, it was, I mean, other than I think, as I was saying, that you're exposed to some stories and some things happening in real life that is sometimes quite challenging. But I think, yeah, I loved the people there. And actually, I think I made some really good friends there. And I think it, and my job, I thought, as I said, was, yeah, just really fascinating. And I learned so much as well. Just, I think just, and that, I think every role that I've had, I've learned a lot because my experience has been so many different places, like from the police force to charity to banking, like to fashion, and each one, like I get really sort of attached to like what we're doing as a company, and I think I seek out places that I get attached to that because I think it's important. But it's just especially the police like really opened my eyes to like actually like this is a whole different world, and that you meet really interesting people, and I've had lucky enough to have that experience in all of the companies I've worked for.
Yeah, I think for that to be your first, like, job out of the blocks, that would have set you up from a kind of resilience level. I would imagine, like, anything after
Yeah.
that is probably gonna feel, like, not quite as full on, so I can imagine as a learning, like, we're in it, we're into our career now, and that would be a very good quick learning curve, I would imagine.
Exactly. Yeah, and maybe there's something in that. Like actually, we're
Yeah.
going back a while, but like, how
Mhm.
do you sort of take lessons of resilience from places like the police force and
Yeah.
stuff like that for companies that don't have so much pressure and demand?
Mhm.
Like maybe there's something there.
So you've touched on as you kind of navigated through your career. So police force,
Mm.
banking, charities. Was it? I think Monzo, ASOS. You now at Marks
Yeah.
and Spencers. So massively varied in terms of the industry. How have you found it when you were with those places? So to me, they all sound like very big organizations. Was that the case when you were there, or were they kind of in their, like, startup journey, or were they very well established?
Yeah, bit of a mix really. Yeah, obviously smaller to larger companies. I think ASOS was probably my first kind of exposure to as the company of a smaller size. And although it wasn't a startup really when I joined, I think it hadn't been around for very long. If you think of companies that have been around for over 100 years, like Marks and Spencers, like ASOS just wasn't that. And
When did ASOS launch? Would you know?
oh my
Roughly.
gosh, I'm not sure, but I joined in 2016.
Mhm.
Or yeah, 2016. So and it was less than 10 years old then.
Yeah, because it just
So
massively, like, transformed the whole sector, really.
yeah, it really did. And what I loved about ASOS is I remember being sort of younger and and spending time with my cousin who was a little bit older than me, and she found this website called As Seen on Screen, and I remember it was like blue and lot text heavy, but you could it was just like this new thing was around, and to see that go from when I got there to like it being really fashionable and trendy and like something that everyone knew about. It was really cool to join a company having seen that transition.
I
Um,
never knew. So is that what ASOS stands for, or did stand for?
yeah, as seen on screen. Yeah, and you could buy things that you'd seen in TV shows. So I
Oh,
think they
nice.
didn't always just sell clothes. They sold things like a lamp from Friends. You could
Wow.
buy that, or you could buy what was it oh, there was this like what's the a pestle and mortar from something
Yeah.
else.
That's so
So
ahead of the curve, though,
yeah,
because that was, I would think, before the kind of product placement era, definitely before influencer era, so yeah,
yeah,
they were onto
yeah.
something good from day one, so
They were,
yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
that's how they thought. They had, ASOS insiders, didn't they, as well, which were basically influencers who were people that worked like me there every day, but then they had their kind of social media presence and were the people that, like, represented the company. So that again, I didn't know any other companies that did that at the time, so they were really forward thinking.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I guess that was probably my first experience of being in kind of a startup. They still felt like a startup. And I always say that when I was at ASOS, it was just like the most amazing culture. And again, I've made some of my closest friends even today, like through ASOS. And the culture was, exactly how you would imagine it to be, like just full of energy, very like everyone was very fashionable that worked there, which was a bit of pressure, like walking into the office every day.
I get
But it
that.
just
I
yeah,
worked at GHD, at probably a similar time where it was no longer a startup, but it still had the energy.
yeah,
Literally, the reception was a catwalk. So
yeah.
it
It
was,
was like that.
really fun, but I totally get that pressure of being like, "What are you gonna wear to work for that day?"
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I think like that for me was in terms of like my journey was the first time that I really was I think when I was at the Prince's Trust or the King's Trust now, like I knew there was something in tech, like in terms of learning, like, but that was quite early on, and we in terms of digital learning, like we were using it for compliance, and then that was really it. And then I got to ASOS, and I think because it had that vibe and was very forward thinking and innovative, we immediately started talking about okay, so phones are now around. Everyone's using phones. They came out probably what was it like 2008 maybe. Like so it was like everyone had a phone now. So how are we taking learning and putting it on their phone? So it
Mm.
was like really that was a shift for me in terms of how I approached learning because everyone was just like, this is so exciting. We can embrace digital. So it as that culture, like, filtered down to what we were doing.
So would that have been in terms of where you are now, which is Marks& and Spencer's, would you say the 2 felt very different in terms of, I guess, the approach to learning, the challenges that you have? How's that kind of worked out for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I guess, it definitely has influenced, and I guess the places in between have influenced it even more. Like, I think obviously went from ASOS into Monzo, and that I think has influenced me the most in terms of how I approach learning because it's it even going back to my interview, I remember my interview there, and it was literally like we were designing a product and we were doing a bit of a discovery workshop in the interview. It didn't feel like a normal interview, and that I felt so energized when I left there, and that day, and I just knew like we're onto something here, and it so at that I think combined so with ASOS, it was like opening my eyes to how to, learning can be really exciting and we can innovate with this and we can do some great things with digital to how do you think like a product designer and how do you sort of do that and I think with Monzo being just so full of people that were innovating all the time and like were just some of the most intelligent people I've ever met in my life, like I was able to combine those two things. So then now coming over to Marks and Spencer's, I really take some of that into what I'm doing because it's especially in this role that I'm in because it really it's a part of the business that kind of feels like a startup within a big company being part of the international side. So I'm really able to pull from those.
And as
But
far I wanted to ask about that, sorry. You've recently moved, haven't you, from one team to another?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, because I spent some time in our fashion, home and beauty side of the business, and then moved over to international. So, it's a huge, a big part of the business, and our growth, and so a great opportunity. And but yeah, definitely something that feels like this is an exciting new, you know, part. Not it's been around for a while, but I think some of the stuff we're doing feels really new.
So, in terms of having the experience from the smaller kind of startup energy, which I'd say for myself is where I am now. We're definitely past the point of startup at Titus, but when I joined,
Yeah,
I was the first female. I was pregnant, so the first female and the first pregnant lady they'd had to deal with, which they dealt with very well, and then I came back and we had kind of doubled in size. COVID had happened in between on my mat leave, and obviously we're kind of 5 years down the line now. We're much bigger, but like you say, we still massively have that kind of entrepreneurial startup energy, which I really thrive on and love. But I've also worked in really big organizations where, to an extent, the road was kind of laid out for you. Certainly from
yeah.
a marketing perspective, there was processes and ways of doing things and your budget allocation, and you kind of worked within that. So I'm just curious from an L&D perspective, how's that played if you were to give examples, how's that played out? And is it transferable? Is the stuff you've been able to bring from the smaller organizations and get to fly in the bigger ones? Or is it not, are you not able to transfer that kind of stuff?
I definitely think you're able to transfer some of the stuff. I think, but like you say, it is more of an established environment, and I think there's so, and some of the things I think that some of the great things that you get in a startup, you can try and bring into a large company, but I think they're very different. You're probably going after the same thing. I think as L&D, you are acting as a connector, like you want to help everyone to to develop and as the company develops, but so you're being a connector, but in a startup I feel like you're a connector to tools that help people to like mature and to nurture people, but in a larger company it's like you are a connector as a community, like because I think as a startup you've got so much more exposure to each other. You've got exposure to leadership. You've got, you'll have more town halls and gatherings where like you're listening to small I give Monzo as an example. Like you'll be in town halls and you're hearing we've just made a huge improvement to the app and this is how we did it and this is next steps. And I feel like in big companies there's so many people doing so many different things, you just don't get that exposure. So I think as L&D, when you're thinking about how do I bring that in, you're thinking more about how do I connect people to inspire each other and
Mm.
and to hear those stories because they don't come, as naturally.
And how do you do that? Because thinking back on, yeah, different places I've worked, it's exactly that. So at Titus, if it can be as easy as do you know what? I'm going to come and sit in on your team and just go through it with you. We do that all the time. It's relatively easy. In other places, genuinely, I never really would operate outside of the marketing department. Um, so how do you manage that in a bigger organization to get to that learning game?
Yeah, it's quite difficult, I think. Is I think if you so what we're I guess we're talking about is how do you kind of create opportunities to learn about things outside your job and expand your awareness and so I think in bigger companies we'll talk about critical experiences, but you have to be really intentional about planning those. And you have to have buy-in and like you have to kind of say, okay, so you know, if I want to if I, as part of someone's development, if I want to give you a critical experience, I've got to make sure that, like, okay, so how do we make sure we get them over there and what does that look like? So I think some of the learnings that you can take from um, the smaller companies is just like, how do you like connect people in really inventive ways? And you can start by just thinking about, you usually still have huddles, right, in the larger companies. Like if you should have some regular meetings. So it's like, how do you sort of get people in there to share more about some of the work that they're doing, and it could just be some experience sharing in that, or we talk about communities of practice a lot, and in large companies, how are you creating the space for people to connect with each other? And it's even more difficult now because um I think we are so attached. We talk about this actually when we were together at the Learning Awards as well. I think that it's like there was a theme there around we're so attached to our computer, like we're doing everything digitally,
Yeah.
and
Becoming a
we
bit
are
transactional, they were saying.
it's
Yeah.
becoming so transactional, and like your time is really stretched because actually we've reduced resources. So that time to connect is I think where we kind of need to tap into. So sharing experiences and stuff. And one of the things that I always look at as well is how do you bring external like experience in to come and share some information and inspire your teams. um how do you pair people up that have different experiences? So we talk about buddies a lot in terms of onboarding, but how do you use opportunities, someone that has just joined the business, perhaps, that has got all of this experience with someone that maybe has been at their business for a bit longer, like they've got two really unique skill sets that you want to connect. So how do you build those connections? So I think it's just trying to be a bit more intentional about it because you haven't got that direct access um to people. And um yeah, I think that's really what you've got to try and do. One of the other things as well, in terms of what you can add, is probably there's I feel like in startups, you've got more license to learn as you go. So it's you I think you probably, as I said before, you're being hired because you're probably coming to the business as someone that's got some great ideas and like that's got some really great skills to offer, but actually like in terms of um experience and executing of stuff that might not be there. So you find yourself in a role in a startup and you're learning as you go and you're not afraid to ask questions and you're not afraid to fail. That takes an element of bravery, I think, in a larger company. So and you might come across someone that's already done that thing before because people have been there for a really long time. So I think is how do you sort of create a space where people can learn by doing, and take that in to a larger company. So and a lot of that comes down to psychological safety, and a lot of it has to be leadership led, and that yeah, I think that's an interesting piece too. It's yeah, helping people to learn and experiment as well.
Yeah, and I think it absolutely can be achieved in a larger organization, as you say, if the buy-in is there and if the culture allows for it. I mean, we at Titus we do talk exactly like that. Try a lot of things, fail fast, learn quickly, go again. But again, I have worked in big marketing teams, and that was also the ethos as well. So I can see stuff like that playing out well. I think just the culture and buy-in is absolutely huge.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think you've got to really get the support of your, as we said, your leadership team, and you have to think about the culture. Like, I think, again, we were talking about this at the event last week, weren't we? Just around the panel discussion was on culture, and how do you break down like the barriers for people to access learning or connect with each other, and that could be really challenging. And a lot of it does need to be leadership led. A lot of it you need to encourage your leadership team to say, like, you have my permission to spend time on this. And is if you're looking at people's day jobs, like there's things like talk a lot about like meeting culture. Um are we thinking about how we like spending our days in the most like efficient ways, so that we're creating the space where people can step away and learn? Because otherwise I think you're not, you can put all this great stuff out there, but actually you're not creating an environment where people feel like they can learn. And I guess that we'll probably get to it a bit later when we're talking about similarities between learning and marketing. I think there is, you know we can't get people away to learn, so how do we be a bit more inventive with how we get things to people where they are, so that you've got to um you're not having to ask people to step away for a day for training. Like we use digital and other ways to get to people.
Yeah, we say that a lot from a marketing perspective. You just have to communicate where the people are. So you come up with the coolest idea and you want to run with it, and it's on, some sort of digital channel, and it's all singing and all dancing. But actually, if everyone is just all day every day in Slack, sometimes that is a much more powerful way to get whatever, whether it be learning or, a campaign, whatever that might be, um, to get it across. But I think we found, didn't we, that there's tons of parallels between probably the challenges that I face as a marketing manager, the challenges you face as an L&D manager. Uh, and there's tons of them, but I think one of them that I really feel is in the wrong hands, or again with the wrong leadership team. Um, Probably both marketing and L&D can be perceived as nice to haves or bolt-ons, as opposed to real business critical functions. So that's something that I've been very passionate about and really intentional when I built the team at Titus, just to make sure that we've grown alongside the business and we've grown alongside the goals of the business. So everything we do just intrinsically is adding a lot of value. And then I'm constantly over communicating that back up. Uh, so yeah, I don't wanna put words in your mouth, that might not be the case for L&D, but is that something you have, do you ever feel like you are having to kind of sell it in internally?
Yeah, always. Always. Yeah, like, I just feel like we're always fighting for a seat at the table, and, like, since the start, that's been the case. Um, and I think it really comes down to, again, like, what the company sees, the function as doing. What are they hiring you to do, and what's the benefit that you can bring? But, yeah, so I think there's some questions that you can ask, like when you're joining a company, of what do you actually want from training, like, and this function. Because I have had experiences where that didn't like match up for me, and then you're trying to convince people. So you can either try and convince and take them on that journey with you, or you try and find something else. But I think, I've always been the person to like dig in and try and shift the perception, but it's not always easy to do that. Um, but I think there's something in how much the industry has grown and changed as well, because I think we have gone from being, a function where we just provide training for people, to more of a strategic pillar of organizations, or we have capabilities for being more of a strategic pillar. And I think it's about almost convincing people, or going to the companies like that they see that. And but yeah, so there's I think there's ways that you can shift. Did you see I think David J's posted about this on LinkedIn this week?
You
Did you
did.
see?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And he's been a bit of a mentor of yours, has he, over the years?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because I met him when I was at ASOS, and he was a bit of a mentor for me then, and we stayed really close. And I always follow him on LinkedIn. I think he's got some really great things to share, and it was just so funny when he posted it, because we've obviously been thinking about it. And he said there's three things that you could think about. There's and he said that you've got to speak outcomes. So it's not about it's not about the training itself. It's about like the outcomes. And I talk I in my world, I think I try and find someone in the leadership team, one person that really gets that, and that's like really willing to listen and is excited about L&D, and they can kind of become your best friend and you sort of like your first follower. Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, otherwise, I do find sometimes like you go in some businesses, um, I think actually you'll find this everywhere, that everyone thinks they know how to do L&D. And I'm not saying that like to blow my own trumpet,
Oh,
but
it's the same in marketing. The amount of
yeah.
times I will be at a table and someone will say, "Do you know you can do a post on like LinkedIn or something?" I'm like, "Oh,
Mm. Like that, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is the thing. And so they've always got an opinion. So I think if you're talking less about the solution and getting them more into the why and talking their language, like I think that is a plan to help shift some of the perceptions. So yeah, I think that's a big one. And the other one I think you said was about the data piece, and just how do you get talk about the data, bring data, not decks. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Because he I remember him arming me back at ASOS with some questions around, how do you get under the skin of what's really happening. And it's things like, I think he put it in his post, was like, what would happen if he did nothing? And other questions like, how do you know this is a problem? Where are you now based on where you want to be? And just being curious, and then that arms you with the data, and you're like, right, I think I know what to go after now. And then there's just like starting small. So if you're in that product mindset, and then you can kind of think, right, if I do this and I put this out there, do I create a shift? And it's that data that you need to take back to your
yeah."
stakeholders, because like, look what I managed to do. This is the shift. So you're taking the conversation away from, we need to do some learning, and and what solutions do you think we should do, to, we've got a problem and this is how we're going to solve it, kind of thing.
And so we're talking at the minute. So at Titus, we're very much in the digital learning. We're the software platform. So with our product team at the minute, we're really trying to help our customers be able to do that, have the reporting, have the ROI that they can go to their seniors with, and like you say, let the data speak for itself almost. So do you see that being, in terms of being able to collect those data points, um, is that something that has to happen digitally, or how are you managing that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's probably mixture of both. I think sometimes you have to get a bit creative with data. But I remember with again when I was at ASOS, someone said to me like, make friends with the tech team and the data team, because like they've got all of this stuff, and you could really utilize. So make friends with them and just be curious with them and have conversation with them. So that always stuck with me. And often when you're at larger companies, you will have a team that are specifically focused on data. So it's like, get to them. So I think that gives you the business data which you need to understand, how do you measure performance generally in the organization. Um, and so you've got that. But then I think you also kind of need to be a bit creative in terms of just going out to people and getting some like verbatim feedback. And how has this changed for you? And I guess it's quite similar in marketing. When you do your market research, like you need to speak to people, and understand how this changed things for them. And that's genuinely how I think you can approach learning too. And it's getting people in a room to say, what's the problem? Like, let's map it out. Tell me exactly how you're experiencing it. What's the difference between what you have now to where we want to be? And then staying close to that group of people once you've rolled out your solution, to say, how is this changing? What are you doing differently? And then you're gathering that information as well. So you're kind of storytelling with your data. Um, So if you can then join the two together, we're never going to be able to say, I did this piece of training and it's improved sales by X. Like unless you're training the sales team, it's not always easy. But I think if you can generate a bit of a story around it, I think that's how you can do it. But you'll only get there if you've done that piece of work at the start to say, what is it we're trying to solve?
Yeah, definitely. I think as well as you say that piece between gen like data that the data analysts have access to and the business data, but the powerful stuff of just getting out there and speaking to the learners, or in my case, the customers, that the audience, because sometimes that will give you an insight that you would have never found, the data would have never told you. I mean, one that comes to mind from last week at the training awards, we had customers there and they've been with us for like 6 or 7 years. And I was like, what was it initially as to why you came to us? Um, and it was because via Moodle, they're able to have an equation tool, which for them is, they're a scientific organization. So for them, that was a lot of software didn't allow you to do that. So I would have never known that, and I would have looked at pain points and brand attribution and all of this stuff. And obviously, we've retained them for 7 years down to all that other stuff. But yeah, I think when you can really get a blend of the two, understanding from learners what it is they need, and getting that genuine insight, and then be able to validate that with the business data, I think that's probably a sweet spot.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think there's something else that we've been looking at as well. I think lots of companies are looking at, future skills at the moment. And I think one of the things that I think really works in that is to kind of say to people, like, how would you rate yourself in terms of where you are right now? Like, if this is a future skill that we think you need, how would you rate yourself? And then you repeat that activity to say, okay, how would you rate yourself now? And it sounds like a really simple thing, but actually if they've gone from 2 to 4, like, great, why? Like, what made the change and why are you not at 5? And tell me more. And I think that would help you to um continue to iterate and develop people even further. Or is the solution that you've put out there working? Because I know if in marketing, like, you'd never just go and put something out there and be like, okay, job done. It's like you'd want to know, is this getting the demand we wanted? Like, is this landing? Is it being seen by the right people? And it's exactly the same with learning. I think you need to know, like, is it being seen by the right people? Have we put it in the right place? So I think there's all of that data as well. I think that you can pull into it too. So I think you've just got to think like you would if you were creating a product, and you'd be on the right track.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've even found we were already doing it, not anecdotally, that's the wrong word. Uh, we were essentially doing marketing support for a lot of our customers, just for the reasons that you've said. They're very busy individuals. Marketing isn't their role, but for them to be able to get their learning out and get the buy-in and get it to the audience and then have people find it, that requires a marketeer, or some level of marketing. So it's a bit of a sidestep really for a software company, but we've got the talented internal marketing team, so that is something that we now do as a kind of complementary service, I guess, complementary offering to hosting the platform. So yeah,
Awesome.
there's so much crossover.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with the marketing piece, because I was when I was at ASOS. I always talk about ASOS. It's like I learned so much there. But one of the things that they did with the learning side is they marketed themselves like they did the brand. So it was, yeah. So I remember, like, we had ASOS's, like, in our imagery, but it looked like the images you had on the site, and it felt so much less corporate, and just it was more engaging, and just people connected with it, and we weren't talking like a people function, we were talking like they spoke, and that just completely changed everything. And we had a lot, it was good because we had the investment to have the photos taken and to do all that marketing piece. But it changed everything, and I think people were just like, "Oh, I recognize that as something that's here for me," and that's how we got so much more engagement. So
So, I mean, throughout your career, obviously you've had all these different every job that you've gone from, it sounds like you've absolutely taken something with you into the next.
yeah.
Um, Time to get your little crystal ball out, but what do you think is gonna be the next kind of iteration um of the industry, or the next thing that's really moving the needle?
Um, Good question. I mean, we are definitely in that digital age, aren't we, where everything is becoming AI. So I think our role in that is definitely going to be different. I if I have a question any point of any day now, I am on Copilot. Like it helps me with absolutely everything. That is my go-to. And everyone is doing that. And I just think we've got this, hub of information that we can use. So again, I think the next iteration of our world is going to be, from a learning perspective, it is going to be being those connectors. And like I think we're going to have so much more focus on taking people back into the human element of it. Um, and it's really interesting. So I do think everything in life is circular, like everything goes around in circles. And I think where we sort of took digital to take us away from spending time with each other, and we thought, hey, we can do this so much faster, and like this that still exists, and actually like, but it's become our BAU. And actually, like if we're talking about helping people to be successful every day in their job, like yeah, I think absolutely is so important. I think the way that I see our industry going is how are we complementing that with those human elements, and how are we thinking about creating the space for people to learn. So I really see it like that, and it's interesting because I think if we go back to corporate and startup comparisons, one of the things is um, that I found as in a startup, you are in front of leadership and more senior people in the company all the time because it's a smaller team. So I think, how do you create those experiences where you've got connections to people that are going to lift your head up and see what's going on in the business? So I feel like that's how we're going to complement um, what's happening in the digital world. Um, so I see them working side by side. So yeah, I really think that's where it's headed. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and if you had to put a kind of weighting on it, which one do you see being the core and which do you see being the kind of supplement in terms of in-person learning? And then is that supplemented by digital, or do you see it being the other way around?
I think it's the other way around, because I think we the way that we operate in everyday life, like we are digital. Everything is digital, and it's going to get even more digital. So it's just like actually taking people away from that. Yeah, it's that's not how people operate. So we're always going to be in that world, and I think that means we're always going to need to keep iterating in that space and staying up to date with how tech grows. But I think there's a piece around the community element, and I don't even think it's being in a classroom. I think it's about community, and I think it's about experience sharing. And is it Wally, the film that they're all kind of sat on their chairs, like looking at their screens, and there's a thing around getting people to look up, and because it's just that I think that's it. That's the piece. So I see that complementing it, and I'm so excited about digital. Like, I've been excited about that forever, but I think our role is, how do we enable that and actually help people to continue to innovate and grow by lift your head up and connect with people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen that play out firsthand really well. So Cambridge Judge Business School, they're a customer of ours, and it was nothing to do with that. We got on by our own merit, but myself and the two founders of Titus went and did one of their like high, like a business education courses. And it was such a good blend of the 2. So predominantly digital, but exactly what you say there, then supplemented by so we did it May to September. A lot of it was online, but then we had the beginning and the end lectures in person with this community of 100 other people, and I will say those bits for me were the ones that I left feeling like, "Wow, that was, like, a pinch me moment anyway for being there." But you just pick up on the energy, I guess, of other people, but it wouldn't have been realistic for us to all have done that over a 6-month period, so that was a something to the digital, and then at the end, you felt like you had had a really well-rounded learning experience, I guess.
100%. And then you'll leave that room and then you'll get into your self-directed learning like space and you'll get onto your tools and you'll start to explore how do I do this and what's out there to help me to do X. And like I think that's how we'll complement it. So it's almost just like inspiring people to find the right things and then they'll go and grow because we do that naturally. So
Yeah. I think it's nice. I think at the minute, again, in marketing and in the L&D sector, it can feel a little scary that we don't know quite what's coming in the next few months, let alone years. But um, yeah, I think how we've just described it there and how it was described again at the training awards last week, it actually did like leave me feeling really like optimistic around what the next few years are going to look like.
same, same. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm quite an optimistic person anyway.
Yeah, I'm
So
too
I'm all,
I'm overly optimistic, and it doesn't always serve me well because I always think I'll get there on time, and I'm always
mhm,
late.
same, same.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this is the thing. I know there's quite a lot in the interviews where people say we're going to be out of the job and all this stuff, but I'd never see it like that. I think as long as we keep our finger on the pulse and we stay close to how things are developing, like I think then we'll still be in the job. Like, and I think it's really exciting to like, my gosh, think about what's available now compared to what was available 5 years ago. That's just crazy. So what's it going to be like in the future? And I'm just excited for the journey.
Yeah, same. We could talk for ages, I think. So I'm gonna stop it there, but before you leave, I do just have 3 quick fire questions for you, so don't overthink them. Go with your gut. Um The first one is, what book or film would you say you have learned the most from?
Ah, um, books I always say Adam Grant. He's my favorite writer. He's a workplace psychologist, and he's always talking about don't do what's always been done, keep challenging, and he often shares stories about how people have been successful in that. So that I would highly recommend Adam Grant, and he changed how I thought. And actually, it was someone in Monzo that gave me a book of his that started my sort of love affair with Adam Grant. So, yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna
definitely.
check them out. Which one would you recommend as a good
So
starter?
I would start with originals, and then yeah, and then he has one called Think Again, which again is really good. Um, gosh, films. Oh my goodness. I don't know. I think there's still got to be a creative side to what you do, isn't there? And so I think sometimes you've just got to find something really, really creative to get that going. So I love anything by Baz Luhrmann. So, he's done Romeo and Juliet and
That's so funny. So, Romeo and Juliet is my all-time favorite film, and it was my wedding anniversary last week, and they were doing an immersive cinema version with, like, the live gospel singers, orchestra,
oh wow.
and
Oh my
and
gosh.
then playing the film, but I just sit in awe. I'm like, to my husband, I'm like, "Look at the cinematography, look at every single shot, you could do it as a still in this." Yeah, that's my I love that you said that. Best film.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, and Moulin Rouge is my ultimate favorite film
Yeah,
ever.
yeah.
So
They
yeah.
are pieces of like you say, they're pieces of art, and I think anytime that you can be inspired creatively from a learning point of view, it absolutely kinda just gets everything firing.
Yeah, you never forget the feeling it gave you, do you? And I think that is so true with anything like with marketing and L&D. Like if you can create a feeling in someone like that really inspires them, then they're never going to forget it. And I think that's why, when I watched Moulin Rouge for the first time, the music and the colors And the way I felt afterwards, I remember when it came out in the cinema and I just kept going back to see it. And yeah, so it's the feelings. If we can take that, yeah.
And then second one is who, yeah, a person who you feel like has really helped you learn along the way.
Uh, yeah, I mean, it's gonna be David, isn't it? David James. Um, I think he's probably the same for lots of people. Like, I think he's very inspiring, and yeah, I feel very fortunate that I was able to kind of meet him in person. Back in ASOS days, and then we've kept a relationship. So I think, yeah, he definitely inspires my thinking. But I just love meeting new people and just hearing their stories. Like that's one of my favorite things to do. We've been trying to do this thing. It's just like me in a community of people recently of like, how do you push yourself out your comfort zone when you're just out and about? Just approach someone and talk to them, and it's really hard. But it's we just share stories when that happens, and so yeah, I just think learning from everyone, new experiences is always useful. Um, I've been because of the work that I'm doing with my community called Visionary Voices. I've been speaking to a lot more entrepreneurs recently, and there are some people that are just doing some incredible things. So, Marissa Poster, who is the founder of Perfect Head, um, a co-founder of Perfect Head, like she has really inspired me, just the way that she leads her team and creates a really safe space for her team. So, and I met her in Waitrose. So
What,
I met
just
the team in
shopping?
Waitrose.
Just to do with you shopping?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the team were in Waitrose. I think they were just looking at their products, like being there. So and just got talking to them there, and like have just kept the connection. And I love moments like that. And yeah, that I just think they're really great leaders, and they embrace every opportunity. Like you can tell just from them, just going to see how their products are in the store. So I think we can learn a lot from people like that.
Definitely. And I love the bit about out of your comfort zone. So I ran my team day yesterday, and aside from our normal business goals, one thing that I asked each team member to do is say that they're going to do one thing out of their comfort zone in the next 3 months. So actually, for me, this is it. So
Really? Oh,
yeah, being in front of the camera and hosting the podcast rather than being behind the scenes was my out of my comfort zone. But I've loved it. I'm glad I've done it with you
me
for the
too.
first time, but I've really enjoyed it. So
Me too. Thank
yeah,
you. Yeah, I think I think we've nailed it together. So
yeah,
I think
you
you
did.
did great.
Yeah. Oh well, I think we'll finish up there. Thank you so much, Alice. As I say, you were the first person I asked. It only took us a year, but we did it. We got there. And yeah, thank you so much. It's been a really brilliant conversation.
Oh, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, I'll speak soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.